Season 6 of Peaky Blinders recently came to a close. Today, let's take a look at some of the fan theories about Thomas Shelby's death. What theories have fans concocted? What happened to Thomas Shelby in Season 6 of Peaky Blinders? And what can we expect from the Peaky Blinders movie? Stick around to the end, and we will tell you everything that you need to know. First up, fan theories around Thomas Shelby's death. Peaky Blinders is a crime drama that follows the adventures of the Peaky Blinders crime family and their associates. It's set around the time of the World Wars. It premiered in 2013. Earlier this year, the sixth and final season was broadcast in the UK. The worldwide release will take place on June 10th, 2022 on Netflix. The final season will be followed by a movie. Now, let's look at what we know about Thomas Shelby's death. We saw Aunt Polly predicting that a war between Thomas Shelby and Michael Gray was inevitable. This war would lead to one of them dying. We also know about the diagnosis given by Dr. Holford, where he stated that Thomas had terminal tuberculoma, which was a brain tumor caused by tuberculosis. Ever since Season 5 came out, there has been heavy debate over what the future holds for Thomas Shelby. Let's look at all the indications regarding his death. The first aspect we will look at is Tommy's mental health issues. So, Tommy has been having seizures and hallucinations. In Season 6, he suffers from seizures. We see him go back to the war and flashes of him fighting. It is similar to what we saw back in Season 1 after he smoked opium. So it's likely that Tommy is suffering from some form of PTSD and that it is not diagnosed or treated. In Season 5, we see him feeling suicidal. In fact, in these hallucinations, she would encourage him to take his own life. In addition, we see him pointing his gun at his temple. He had also considered taking a leap from a bridge. The Shelby clan has a troubled history of suicide. Tommy's mother and grandfather had committed suicide. Next, we're going to look at hints that were dropped throughout the season. So, the latest deal that Shelby Limited is working on is supposed to be the last deal. Tommy, in fact, says, quote, "And then we, Peaky Blinders, rest." Tommy's life has revolved around the Peaky Blinders and their nefarious activities. With the death of Aunt Polly, it may be the case that Tommy is no longer interested in continuing the organization. But we should keep in mind the fact that the characters tend to come back to life rather frequently in Peaky Blinders, and most dead characters don't stay dead. We were left with a cliffhanger showing that Thomas Shelby had blown his brains out, but in the next season, we see that his gun wasn't loaded. Similarly, right at the beginning, we saw Thomas under Danny Whizbang, but it turned out that he was not dead. Tommy has been beset by enemies all his life, and every season there is someone new around to take him down. In Season 5, while talking to Alfie, Tommy stated that he was satisfied with the afterlife, so it may be possible that Tommy sees his death as a solution to all the issues that he and his family face. If you haven't yet seen Season 6, be warned, there are spoilers ahead. You may want to cover your ears for a few seconds. So, Tommy came close to taking his own life, but then he discovered that his tuberculoma diagnosis was fake. He also got a new lease on life when his daughter appeared in one of his hallucinations and told him not to commit suicide. He then rides away towards the hills. This ending is a bit awkward, and it seems hastily put together, unlike what we've come to expect from the show. Throughout the season, we keep getting hints about Tommy dying. We also see Tommy come to the realization that he didn't want to slowly die of tuberculoma. We were not shown anything to indicate that Dr. Holford was lying or that he was in cahoots with Oswald Mosley or the Nazis. Holford was Tommy's trusted doctor who he had been consulting with for years. So the twist came out of nowhere, and it was unsatisfactory by the standards of this show. It's possible that they had envisioned a larger plot spanning 2 seasons, which would show why the good doctor had acted deceptively. However, we are left with no choice but to accept the series finale for what it is. So, it seems like Tommy's chapter will get closure only in the upcoming Peaky Blinders movie. Initially, there were plans to make a 7th season, however, they decided to go with a film. The bigger budgets and cinematic experience that a movie offers would be a great way to bid farewell to our beloved characters. So, what do we know about the Peaky Blinders movie? Now let's take a look at what we know about the upcoming Peaky Blinders movie. The movie is set to go into production in 2023, so we can expect to see it hit the silver screen in 2024 or 2025. Stephen Knight, the showrunner, stated that he would be writing the Peaky Blinders movie. He said, quote, "And that will probably be the sort of the end of the road for Peaky Blinders as we know it." So, let's look at whether this movie will be the conclusion of Tommy's story arc. Showrunner Stephen King has stated that the Peaky Blinders movie will be a fitting conclusion to the story. So, we are likely to see what would happen to Thomas Shelby, whether his life story ends with suicide or a natural death. He also stated that it was always his intention to redeem Tommy because he was a good man doing good things. Tommy would live through his experiences from the First World War and the PTSD and go on a journey. So, the ending of Season 6 and the upcoming movie could be all about his redemption arc. How will the movie bring back Polly? So, Helen McRory's character, Polly Gray, has played an important role throughout the TV show. Even after the actor passed away, her character was present in the 6th season. So, even in the movie, we can expect Polly to be present. Maybe not physically present, but she would be referenced in the film. A Peaky Blinders movie without Polly would be incomplete since she was a fundamental part of the Peaky Blinders universe. What would the movie cost? Now let's look at what story the upcoming Peaky Blinders movie would be looking to tell. In an interview, showrunner Stephen Knight stated that though the movie was in development, he had a fully formed idea of what was to come. He said, "It has a beginning, middle, and end." Further, it was going to be a fitting conclusion to the Peaky Blinders story. He has drawn inspiration from actual stories from the Second World War, but these stories would be told in a Peaky Blinders manner. The show has not shied away from using history as an aid. Plenty of famous characters like Winston Churchill and Oswald Mosley have made appearances on the show. In fact, one of the strengths of this TV show has been the way it discusses real-life events through the context of the characters in the show. It does seem like there will be a bit of a jump in terms of the timeline. The movie is likely to cover the Second World War and events that take place beyond it. We are unlikely to see Tommy or Arthur enlist in the Second World War since they would be well into their 50s during the war. In addition, Tommy was already a politician and a Labour member of Parliament. His story is likely to focus on his political career. Now let's look at other characters who could play an essential role in the film. In an interview with Esquire, Stephen Knight stated that in Series 6 we are bringing in the new generation and that they are going to be a part of what happens in the film. I think it's finding those actors that you just watch and you think, there you go, there's the future. So he seems to have two stories in mind. One story would definitely revolve around Tommy and his future, whereas the other side would probably be about the new generation of Shelbys. By 1939, characters like Michael, Finn, Carl Thorne, Charlie, and Duke Shelby would be eligible for service. In addition, Arthur and John Shelby's kids would also have a role to play. Now, Tommy Shelby may have misgivings about letting Charlie and Duke enlist, considering his experiences from the First World War, and considering that Tommy was an influential politician, could he find a way to at least keep one son away from the war? Will there be a Peaky Blinders spin-off? The next question on everyone's mind is whether there would be a Peaky Blinders spin-off. Based on what we've seen so far, that would likely be Tommy Shelby's son, Duke Shelby, along with the new Peaky gang members who travel with Isaiah and Arthur to Liverpool: Dougie, Bill, Gilly Ray, and Joe Ray. Director Anthony Burns stated in an interview that Steve wants to do a spin-off show featuring younger Peakies who we might see potentially coming to London and causing havoc and maybe getting involved with other gangs. And that's a wrap. We have talked about how Thomas Shelby's story is likely to come to an end. What are your thoughts on the series finale? Have you gotten around to watching it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.